The Winnipeg Jets were choke artists until they weren't, as they come away with a thrilling victory in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, moving on to the second round in just an absolutely fantastic night. There's no other way to put it. This one, and look, obviously, this segment was going to be a lot different today when there was 2 seconds left on the clock in the third period. But Cole Perfetti gets the deflection, and then now Adam Lowry gets another deflection in the second overtime, giving the Winnipeg Jets the biggest win, easily, of Jets 2.0 and a ticket into the second round. But just an unbelievable night to start things off. And, like, you get all of the drama of it right away. The game starts and Hellebuyck is shaky again. And he is not able to make some big saves when the team needs it. And it felt like a nervous building. It felt like a nervous hockey team. It did not seem like a President's Trophy winner or anything like that. It felt like a team that was struggle bussing, and quite frankly, a team that had quit. And we had talked before about how this team has quit at various different points. And that it looked like that was going to be the case again coming up on Sunday night. But then they're able to they're able to battle back. A perfect deflection from Perfetti gives them a bit of life at 2-1. And then another goal is scored and it's 3-1. And it is just that air out of the balloon again. But then desperation sets in with under 2 minutes to go. And they are able to come back and tie this game up. Just absolutely incredible to come back from down by 2 with 3 minutes left. Down by 1 with 2 seconds left. It was phenomenal. And the cherry on top of all of it is that they do this without Scheifele and without Morrissey. It's incredible. Like, Morrissey gets banged up very early on in that contest, and that kind of sets the team back a little bit. And all of a sudden now, Pionk is playing 40 minutes and earning that new contract that he got and silencing a lot of doubters out there. So a gigantic credit to Winnipeg for being able to battle through this and getting these opportunities. And just thinking about that last play in regulation really does, I think, summarize what this game was for the Jets. The puck comes, first of all, the puck comes back to the point after a little bit of pressure, but not really able to break through, and it hops on Ehlers at the blue line, and it goes into the neutral zone. It's like, man, it is, when you have that zone time, it is really tough to tag up and get back in and get that set up again. But they're able to dump it in, they get the puck back, and it comes to Ehlers with like 8 seconds left, and he goes to hammer one, and he whiffs on it, and oh no. So Lowry, in a battle normally reserved for the front of the net, instead happening at the top of the circle, chips it back to Ehlers, who goes from 2 absolute bonehead plays to a perfect pass diagonally across the entire zone. That, I mean, if we really want to diagnose what happened, maybe St. Louis, don't let that happen. But it goes across the entire zone. Connor, heads up, just fires it toward the goal, and Perfetti is able to get the deflection in front. Like, it just goes from near disaster to absolute pandemonium in the whiteout, in Winnipeg, and sets this team up now for an incredible comeback victory. I don't think that all of this ignores what happened with Connor Hellebuyck in this game, but I do think when you are looking at just the mentality of a hockey team, to have this sort of thing hanging over you, that you're not clutch, choke artists. I had said they quit in this series, and I will still stand by that. I think there were stretches where they did quit in this series. Maybe not even quit in just like who cares, but just in a, man, maybe we just don't have it. Maybe we just don't do it. I think that they had something in them that really got to them. And so to hear all of that and to change it in literally 2 seconds is incredible. That I feel like that has to be the monkey off of the back for so many of these guys to push toward now the second round against the Dallas Stars, to be able to put that can't win the big one behind them and be able to move on in the way that they are now is spectacular. The one thing is that there is still this Hellebuyck question. And we had said that games, 3 and 4, I guess, that wasn't Hellebuyck's fault. That was not. But then coming out of the Game 5 win, I was saying, like, look, they won. This was concerning. The goals that he was allowing, those were a problem. And I do think home ice advantage really played a factor in the 2 Game 7s, by the way, that we saw. I think home ice advantage is one of the big winners of the weekend because you have the Jets come up with a fantastic come from behind win, as do the Dallas Stars. And if that game is in St. Louis, I think Hellebuyck gives up 7 because he was not good in this game. And I made the joke on social media, and I think we were give the players some truth serum. I think there was maybe a little bit of truth to it, but they looked like a team that felt like they needed to score before the Blues got a shot. And, I mean, part of that is great job on offense, great job on defense, limiting everything and shutting things down. But also, I do think there was a desperation there. And for Hellebuyck, you don't want to, well, let your goalie get 35 saves and figure it out. It is wild that they played almost 100 minutes, and I don't think Hellebuyck had 30 saves to make. I think he made 8 in the 2 overtimes. And so you don't necessarily get that, I came up big when it counted. It's like, no, I got in the way a couple of times, and I allowed our team to win, even though they soundly controlled the back 40 minutes of that game going into that extra part. But yeah, on a Hellebuyck standpoint, there are still major questions, I think, to ask. I think you have to ask some major questions about what is going on with this particular goalie, because there were those were ones, again, yesterday. You have to make those saves. You simply cannot allow those pucks to go in on you, especially given the circumstances, given the situation, and everything that is going on with this team. You have to make those stops. On the Blues side, I mean, this feels a little like duh, but this has to feel like a gigantic missed opportunity, right? Like they were winning the game with 3 seconds left, and now their season's over. Like that has to feel like a gigantic miss. I don't think they did enough to put the pressure on Hellebuyck when they had that advantage, to really lean on him and really put this one away. And again, a lot of that is credit to Winnipeg, but I do think that St. Louis, if you were to look back on this game, and Lord knows they will, I think there were a lot of opportunities that they could have just peppered this guy with shots and really tried to break him down in a way that it felt like it was able to be done. But still, it is a tricky balancing act now with the St. Louis Blues, because I've said it before and I will say it again. There are a lot of pieces on this team that I like. Thomas and Kyrou are guys that you can build around, right? And Buchnevich, he steps up with a big game in this series. Snuggerud looks like he is the real deal. And I think the biggest loss of all of this is we're not going to have Harnarayan with the Snuggerud anymore. By the way, I said it on social media. Harnarayan killed it. Man, he was good. This entire series. I think he has been doing some very good work for a while, but I think this was easily his best work, which is saying a lot. Because again, I think the guy has been on point for a very, very long time, as is, evidenced by the fact that he is like the number 2 national guy in Canada in hockey right now. But that beside the point right now. Like, you have some of these young pieces. Binnington has shown that he can be very sharp and very good and help get this team to where they need to get to. But there's also a lot of veteran pieces on the team, right? Like, we just mentioned Buchnevich, but Shen, Fowler, Falk, Parayko. You have a lot of vets on this team, and they've tried to avoid the tear down, rebuild, whatever. And that's great because it keeps you competitive. And they were a moment away from making it to the second round of the playoffs. I do think that there is a counter to that they were like 2 moments away from being eliminated by the Flames in the first round, or not even making it to the first round and being eliminated in the regular season if Calgary doesn't completely crap the bed in a couple of games against the Blues or against Anaheim late. But regardless, this is that balancing act, because on the one hand, this is, you were the last team in the playoffs and you pushed the President's Trophy winners to within 2 seconds of being eliminated. That feels like you did what you could. But this isn't Montreal, who's, this is a learning experience that they can grow from. St. Louis is learned. St. Louis is a learned hockey team. And so now where is that next step coming from for this particular group? But we're going to do the full off-season preview coming up next week here on Couch Potato Diary. Again, follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein, wherever you are socially. And if you're digging the hockey content, we do have all the playlists and stuff now. So I know we kind of bounce around sport to sport on the live streams and on the show. So if you are watching on YouTube or on Daily Motion later, we have all of the hockey stuff all in one playlist, so you can just kind of binge through all of that. That was not the only insane game of the weekend, as the Dallas Stars win an absolute thriller. A heartbreaking loss for the Colorado Avalanche. The Stars, again, come from 2 down in the third period to pick up a victory. They only needed 60 minutes instead of an extra period and a half like the Winnipeg Jets did. But a phenomenal showing from the Dallas Stars. And again, it is a weekend that we will remember forever based off of all of the madness that happened. And I think it was like 4 times in NHL history, Game 7s, teams with 2-goal lead in the third period ended up blowing it. And twice it happened in 24 hours. Like just... The stuff that you couldn't even script. And the extra layer on top of it is it's Rantanen for the Dallas Stars, who steps up in the big time way and provides that spark to get them going. And we had said, given some of the injuries, this was a big players need to make big plays sort of a series. And we had kind of pointed it out when Colorado jumped out to that early advantage. Rantanen was quiet. Johnston was quiet. Obviously, Robertson and Heiskanen were quiet, but they had excuses. But you weren't having the big players stepping up on the Dallas Stars. Well, now they did. Rantanen with back-to-back games with 4 points in a period. Absurd. But really did show why there was a lot of attention being paid to what that whole trade market was doing and why he is so impactful. Because it's one thing when you have the speed and the size and the skill that this dude has in the regular season, but it translates really well to that whole postseason thing. And it took a little bit to get going, but once it got going, my oh my. Like, he gets 4 points in the third period. He could have had a couple of more. He was zinging those passes around. And again, you think of the big power forward and the goal scoring, but his passing was on point in this as well. And he was the one who stepped up and kind of dragged them out of whatever kind of a dull moment they were in what was a very competitive game with Colorado. It's not like they were down in the dumps for a bit or whatever. This was back and forth, and it was just Colorado happened to have 2 go into the net and before Dallas did, and the Stars are able to bounce it back. But Rantanen coming up in this big way just really kind of ties this whole season together and this whole series together. But now also you add Johnston getting the big goal with the 3-2-1 that's going to end up going down as the game winner. Getting him going in this playoff series when he had been kind of quiet is so important now for the Dallas Stars. And I do think a point in this series that has been lost a little bit is how damn good Ottinger was and how his performance really did keep them in this. You think of the Nichushkin net drive, and he's able to make a nice sprawling save. And there was a couple of others where he comes out and challenges. I just thought he was brilliant in this, and it really now sets them up in a very interesting manner going into a playoff series against a team that has also now had to go 7 games in the Winnipeg Jets. So a lot to look at with that one. We're going to be breaking those down again as this show kind of rolls on here, but just absolute brilliance from the Dallas Stars and from their top guys. And now that adds to the heartbreak of Colorado, because this is a devastating loss no matter who is on the other end scoring those goals, right? Up by 2, third period, and you lose. Then you add on to it that it is against your former teammate who was your teammate this year that happens. That's a tough one to kind of come back from a little bit. And now for Colorado, yes, they have the Stanley Cup win. And I'm not going to say, well, window is closed, but that you are now getting further and further away, and you're starting to hear some pretty frustrated takes from Nathan MacKinnon about like they were missing their 2 of their top guys and we couldn't beat them. So a lot of questions need to be asked. I thought this roster was built very well. Landeskog comes back. They make a couple of very good additions at the trade deadline, picking up Nelson and Coyle and trying to add to the center depth, which you absolutely need in the Western Conference. And they weren't able to get by this. And again, they were 5 minutes away from being able to, and they just couldn't finish this one. There's going to be obviously a lot of debate about the Rantanen thing. And this exact situation is why I was critical of the handling of the Rantanen thing and how it all played out. More specifically on the Carolina side, if I were to be honest about it. But I still think when you look at what Colorado's objectives are, you have Nathan MacKinnon, who is very good at this sport and you want to try to maximize everything you can, I still feel like, while they did a pretty good job, and it ends up getting, like, Nate just fits in really well with McKinnon. And so you have found another dynamic duo for McKinnon, so you recover it really well. No one on that team can play as well, aside from one guy, no one on that team can play as well as Rantanen can. And so it is kind of as weird as it is to talk about this in sports, it's a cost-benefit analysis thing. For the Avalanche, okay, so you have a little bit more long-term stability. You get something in return for this guy. That's great. You're also out in the first round now. So was it worth it is the question. And this very result could have happened the exact same way if Rantanen stays and they push their way against the Dallas Stars again. Maybe it is someone else on Dallas who is stepping up in that way, and it's the Avalanche that are going home. But you cannot tell me that the Avalanche made themselves a better hockey team this year with that Rantanen trade. And I understand you don't want your guy leaving for free, but then trade him for some neg rights in the third round. Because I have to believe that from an Avalanche standpoint, you have to take advantage of this time that you have Nathan McKinnon playing at his peak. And while they do going forward, and long-term thinking is great, and someone can clip this and put it out in a year when Colorado is skating around with the Stanley Cup, and Nate just had 15 goals in the playoffs, and hey, look at this. They figured it out, and they actually made the right move. But I just think you have to maximize your minutes with Nathan McKinnon, and I don't think they did that this year with the Rantanen move. I still think Carolina screwed that one up the most, personally, but I still think from a Colorado standpoint, they're going to have a long time to talk about this now. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the offseason preview next week, but this one's a tough one for the Colorado Avalanche to stomach. But again, just a phenomenal weekend in the sport of hockey.